Let's rank every sci-fi fantasy series I read this year. The rules: I had to complete at least one book in the series this year. Absolutely no DNFs and no rereads. This is unplanned and unscripted. Let's see where everything lands. All right, we're starting off with the Founders Trilogy. Last year, I gave this series, I think, A or S tier. I'd only read book 1 at the time. Now I've read book 2, and I'm going with D tier. That's how low this one fell. I hated book 2, and I read through the entire thing. I kept wanting to DNF it, but I said, no, I will give it a chance. I will try to get to the end, and when I get to book 3, hopefully it'll redeem itself. And when I started book 3, I just said, absolutely not. I just don't care anymore. And I've wasted so much time. I just don't want to waste anymore. I'm not giving it a shot. The Witcher is back and forth for me. And I think I'm going to go off the vibe I had at the end now that I finished the series. The end to Geralt in series character arc was pretty lackluster for me. Then I read I don't remember the final book, whatever it's called, which is like an extra story. That book was really fun. I really enjoyed it. And so it's like that all the time. It's just ups and downs with the Witcher series. And I feel like the worst that any of the books get would be B tier and the best is S. So I'm just going to go solid A. Next up is the Black Prism. I don't remember what this series is called. I absolutely loved this book, and I'm super excited to dig deeper into this series. My one complaint so far is that I don't really get the magic system. I get it enough to understand the story, but I don't really understand the different pieces of the magic system. Don't ask me to explain any of it. I couldn't. Hopefully that gets better, but we'll see. Next up is the Villains Duology. We're going solid A tier. I loved this series. Seriously, if you haven't checked it out, you need to. It is so good. It's short. It's got a superhero vibe. I feel like it's one of those that it's sci-fi, but it's also fantasy. It's kind of right on the line. And but it doesn't feel like a Marvel movie. It has more of a serial killer vibe. I 100% recommend it. I loved it. If you're interested in learning more about any of these series, I linked all of the related videos in the description. If I haven't made a video about the specific book you're interested in, let me know and I'll see about doing some additional videos. Next up is the Magician series. I loved these books. They're so good. Next up is the Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. Since it's kind of separate from the original trilogy, I feel like it would be weird to do a tier list of the entire Hunger Games franchise, I guess you could call it. So I'm just gonna say that if I was doing that, I think I would maybe lower it a tier, but since I'm just gonna do Songbirds and Snakes, it's kind of a standalone, sort of, we're gonna go with A tier. It was just a great book. It had some issues with it, which I talked about in my video, but I just really enjoyed it. Every month I feature a book of the month on my website. January 2024 is the Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, and February is Warbreaker. Head on over after this video to check out what's there now. Next up is Yumi and the Nightmare Painter by Brandon Sanderson. This is my favorite this is my favorite secret project this year, and it's A tier. It's great. It's a great book. There were a few things that felt slightly off to me. Those things were relatively small. Next up is the Dresden Files. I have loved reading this series. Right now, I've read up through Small Favor, which I don't know what book number that is. I have struggled with a few of the books. I don't know, Ghost and Zombie ones just haven't clicked with me. But otherwise, I've really enjoyed this series. I would put it at S tier if it wasn't for the 1 or 2 books that just I didn't enjoy. All right, Monster Hunter International, or the series, whatever. I just finished Monster Hunter Nemesis today. These books are super entertaining. My big complaint is, there's 2 of them. So first off, I feel like when he introduces characters in an individual novel, he expects you to remember like everything about them, and some of the big characters from the first one have become side characters, but like really side characters, and are only in a couple scenes, and I just don't remember a ton about them, and I need a refresher about like what have these characters been through, together or separate. Like I need a reminder of what they look like. The other issue that I have with Monster Hunter International is that this series is a lot like Transformers, where the action is just like insane, like out of proportion kind of action, and it's great and it's fun, except sometimes it goes on too long. Fairly often it feels like action for the sake of action. There's no stakes and there's no character connection. That happens sometimes. Specifically the last two books, the closer I got to the climax, the less interested I was. So I'm gonna go with B tier, I think, on this one. Sunlit Man by Brandon Sanderson. Okay, this was another secret project. I'm gonna go with B tier on this one, mainly because I just felt like I couldn't envision anything in it. I didn't have a good idea of what the main character looked like, of what any of the side characters looked like. Next up is the Gentleman Bastard series. I'm feeling a little in between on this one. The first book, I really did not like the flashback portion of the story, and it was pretty heavy. But I did like the main story, and again, I loved the main story. I do feel like the main story was less likable than the first one, though. So I'm not sure exactly where to put it. I think I'm gonna go with A tier, I guess. I don't know. It feels all right. I'm between A and B. The next one is called Death of the Black Widow. It's like on the edge of fantasy and sci-fi, which is part of the reason why I'm putting it in B tier, because that portion of it, that it was kind of fantasy, just almost felt out of place. Otherwise, I really enjoyed this book. It was solid, fast-paced, serial killer thriller. And that was a lot of fun. I enjoyed it a lot. All right, next up is the Beyonder series. I don't remember what the first book is called, but that's the one I read. I enjoyed it a lot. I started reading the second one, and I just realized I don't want to read it. It's a middle grade or YA or like younger YA novel. It was fun, but it was hard to believe that the stuff was happening. So often I was getting pulled out of the story feeling like it was kind of forced. But at the same time, there were some really awesome fantasy elements that I also felt like were really inspiring. So I was kind of in between, but in the end I ended up not reading the second one anymore. So I'm gonna go with C tier because I DNF'd it. Next up is A Master of Jinn. I really enjoyed this book. Yeah, it was really good. I feel like it was so it's hard because the ending was really disappointing, but I would say it was A tier for the majority of the time until the end, and that almost dropped it. Actually, I would say it's S tier the majority of the time. Yeah, I'm going to go with A because I super enjoyed it until the end. So next up we've got like the Frugal Wizard's Handbook. I don't know, it's got some super long name that's not that. This is a C tier for me. It was good. I enjoyed it. I just feel like I struggled to connect with the characters, and that's about it. All right, we got the Stardust Thief next. I think the series is called the Sandseer Trilogy or something like that. Super good. I would say it's A tier. I don't think it's up there like the amount of love that I had for these other books. But it was good. It was really enjoyable, and I'm excited for the next book whenever it comes out. I think it's supposed to come out in like March. Next up is the Stormlight Archive, and it's just S tier. Like, it's so good storytelling. I do have a few complaints about it, but they're so minor. I just am enthralled by this series. Next up is, I don't remember what this series is called, but it's Jade City and Jade Wards. Should be called the Jade series, but it probably isn't. This is such a good series. like just S tier hands down. I just absolutely loved it. All right, Tress of the Emerald Sea. This was, I don't know. I feel like I'm gonna put it under B tier. I'm just gonna put it next to Sunlit Man. I think maybe before it. I don't know. I feel like Sunlit Man, I should have liked it more because it's just more my type of story. However, I think I like Tress of the Emerald Sea better just because I could visualize it better. There were some pretty frustrating things about it for me. So we're gonna go with just B tier. Next up is Warbreaker by Brandon Sanderson. Yes, I have read a lot of Brandon Sanderson this year. I'm caught up with the Cosmere though now, so he better not come out with any more books. Just kidding, he can come out with a lot more if he wants. So Warbreaker, I'm gonna go to A tier again. I'm not sure, like, I didn't really order any of these. I really enjoyed it. As I was writing the review, I realized how similar it was to Elantris, and I think that actually brought my enjoyment of it down a little bit because I liked Elantris better. So it's A tier. You know, it was great. Good book. Promise of Blood. People talk about the Powder Mage trilogy as if it's so freaking amazing. I'm going with D tier. I restarted it I guess I didn't restart it 3 times, but I started it once and then restarted it twice because I had no idea what was going on. And like, they would come back, like, I don't know, chapter 4 would bring us back to our first POV character, and I'm like, who's this guy? I don't remember anything about him. And it just kind of continued the rest of the story. Obviously I reread the beginning so many times that those characters kind of got drilled into my head, and I feel like that's the only way I made it through, is that I restarted it so many times. I started the second one and I just said, you know what, I don't care. I don't care at all. So going D tier. Finally, we have Babel. Babel's another one that I heard lots of great things about, and man, I just didn't like it that much. I finished it. I feel like it was longer than it deserved to be, I guess. And then I really could not see the characters. There were some characters that halfway through the book, I realized that they were black. I remember thinking at that point, like, I don't think I know very much about these characters. Did I miss stuff? Or, you know what I mean? So I think that was the issue, that I just didn't feel connected to the characters. There was another character that I was back and forth on whether they were male or female half the time, and not in like a woke kind of way, in like an I have no idea kind of way. This is like a really depressing note to end on. Here's my tier list, guys. It's great. Read the books on top. They're all really good. Let me know if you guys would have placed these books in different spots, and let me know if there's some books that you think I should read this next year. I am totally open to throwing stuff on top of my TBR. Thanks for watching. I'll see you guys later.